Hey everyone, this is Nitro. So, in this video I am going to be talking about the way to build the third and final character joining Langrisser Mobile from the Sakura Wars series, Iris Chateaubriand. And she is truly a top tier healer, despite being a free character that you get and an SR. In a lot of ways, it's a lot like when we got Chloe from in the previous Trails in Time collaboration event, because you get them both at 5 stars once you finish the event. Now, before we begin, let's begin by talking about the required characters to unlock her bonds. And because she is a crossover character, you don't need anyone else to unlock her bonds. So as long as you commit 2 runestones into her, she'll have both her 4th and 5th bond. I believe from Iris Kobu, you'll get her 5th bond, the strength bond, increasing her intelligence. And then if you get Dream Kiss, she will get her 4th bond, which is the toughness one, increasing defense, magic defense, and hit points. So, with all that said, let's begin by talking about her talent, Lovely Heart. And this talent is an amazing one, where after taking action, other allied units within 2 blocks radius gain the buff Dream Kiss. And Dream Kiss's effect is that after taking action, restores hit points equals to a certain percentage of Iris's intelligence for 2 turns. So this value increases the higher star level that she's at, and we'll talk about it mainly at 5 stars and 6 stars, because that's where you'll have your Iris, right? So at 5 stars, it's 2.5 times Iris's intelligence, and then at 6 stars, it's 3 times Iris's intelligence. So this value is extraordinarily high. In fact, it's very, very comparable to SSR healers, the top tier ones. For example, Liena heals 3 times her own intelligence on allies, and then Tieris also heals 3 times her own intelligence. Now, keep in mind, of course, that in the case of Tieris, her heals between battles, whereas Liena only heals after battles, after her action. And then in the case of Iris, the characters heal after they take their action. So it's all slightly different in the way they apply their heals. The fact that her heal applies after the character takes action can sometimes be a demerit, because let's say you just took an AoE hit, right? You won't be able to heal them right away because they each have to act to heal. It's not like Liena, where as soon as she moves around other characters, they get healed. So just keep that in mind. It's great, it's a great effect, but sometimes it doesn't work the way you necessarily want it to. Okay, so that's her talent. It's overall an amazing one. The key point though is to note that it also does not dispel any debuffs applied on allies. So let's talk about her classes, right? And the thing is, Dream Kiss has 3 mobility, while the Iris Kobu has 4 mobility. To me, it seems like Iris Kobu is her better class. However, what I've seen in PvP on the Chinese server there seems to be a lot of Dream Kiss Irises, and I'm not quite sure why. First of all, it could have been that they have the skin, right? So maybe they are running Iris Kobu Iris, and they're just having the skin on her. So that could be one possibility. The other possibility could be that Iris's Heart Bond gives incredible effects. Now, I don't know about this yet because I have not unlocked it myself. So that's just something to keep in mind. It's just something I wanted to mention, but without considering the Heart Bond, to me, it seems like Iris should be left in her Iris Kobu class. And the reason for that is, first, it is additional 1 mobility, which can always help. And second, if I bring up her stats, so just give me a moment to bring that up. There we go. So if I bring up her stats, as you see right now, she has quite a bit more hit points in her Iris Kobu class as a mage than as her Holy class Dream Kiss. Similarly, she gets quite a bit more intelligence, 33 in fact. Now the drawback is her magic defense value drops dramatically, but that's no surprise because cavalry units generally have lower magic defense. But the fact that there's more hit points, more intelligence, generally makes me think that Iris Kobu is her superior class, right? Even more mobility. If you compare it to some of the other, healers, right? For example, her hit points is basically is very comparable to Sophia, if not, and arguably even a bit more, right? Especially in Iris Kobu. More intelligence is very comparable to Sophia, and magic defense, of course, drops dramatically compared to Sophia. No real surprise there. But, compared to, let's say, Wyler, who has extraordinarily low hit points, there's a huge survivability difference right there, right? So, my current expectation is Iris Kobu rather than Dream Kiss, unless her Heart Bond is actually really that good, the 3 effects from it. Alright, so with that mentioned, my current impression is her best class is Iris Kobu. So we'll go on from there. So let's talk about her best skills and the skill combos you use for her. Now, she is definitely a healer that you're going to get double class mastery on if you plan to use her. So, however, I should mention that if you're willing to give up the additional stats from Dream Kiss, that is 15 intelligence and 90 hit points, and unlocking her 4th bond, you can kind of use her with just 1 runestone for Noble Maiden, and then get into Iris Kobu for her final class. So, because this is what unlocks her, arguably her best skills, right? From Noble Maiden, she gets Dolly, and Dolly is an active skill that targets herself. What it does, it moves you to any block in range. It's a self-teleport. I believe it has a teleport range of around 4, okay? And it grants Iris the following effect. After taking action, heals all allied units within 2 block radius for hit points equals to Iris's int times 2, and it lasts 2 turns. So, by using the self-teleportation skill, you basically grant yourself an effect pretty similar to Liana, right? Where you heal characters within 2 blocks of yourself for a certain amount of hit points. The only difference is you don't get to dispel any debuffs with this effect, but still, it's a great effect to trigger and be able to heal your allies basically passively. So that is her first incredibly useful skill, Dolly. Her second incredibly useful skill is from her Iris Kobu class, which is Le Jardin d'Iris. Sorry, Le Jardin Iris. Jeez. Have not spoken French for a while. My apologies. In any case, what this skill does is an active skill which teleports a friendly unit. They have to be within 2 blocks of her, and it has a teleport range of 5. Okay, so it's a bit less than, let's say, Jessica and Heinz teleport, which I believe has a teleport range of 7. Nonetheless, what this effect does, in addition to the teleport, it's an amazing skill because it applies several buffs on your allied character. First, they don't suffer mobility penalties from terrain. Second, they deal 20% increased damage, and finally, they take 20% reduced damage, and it lasts for 2 turns. So, in a lot of ways, this can be a temporary buff on, let's say, Leon, to allow him to ignore terrain, making Leon much more usable in PvP, in Apex Arena, for example. The effect of 20% damage increase and 20% damage reduction is actually like a superior miracle effect, because miracle only does 15-15 as opposed to 20. And just the fact that you can teleport forward basically guarantees that you're able to have your character attack the enemies. So lots of characters you can use this teleport on. You can teleport, let's say, Leonhard forward and have him attack twice. You can teleport, Leon forward. You can teleport Bernhard forward so he can sword dance. Tons of characters can be teleported forward to get buffed. So it's just an amazing skill. That just really sums it up. And as an aside, if you combo this skill, let's say, with Wyler, if you have access to Wyler and Wyler built up, what you can essentially do is first teleport your character forward, have it attack with plus 20%, damage dealt and minus 20% damage received, and then after they attack, you can use Wyler to teleport your character back to safety with the tactical retreat skill. Right? So it just leads to a lot of new combos. That's what this skill does. It is, now keep in mind, it is an ultimate skill with a 5-turn cooldown, but for Apex Arena, it's just amazing. Alright, so those are her 2 core 2-point skills. Other than that, she may choose to bring, let's say, Mass Heal because of the Dispel effect and healing 3 times, her intelligence, and she also finally has a Mass Resist skill. The Mass Resist for the immunity to stun, unbuffable, and mobility reduction effects can be used. Generally speaking, I would say no, but she does have this skill. More likely, you're likely to choose between Dolly and Mass Heal though. But Le Jardin Iris is definitely a skill to bring. Alright, so with that covered, we now talk about her 1-point skills. And in terms of 1-point skills, she truly only has 2 that are usable. And the first one is, of course, Shield, granting immunity defense and magic defense reduction effects, and most importantly, healing negation debuffs. And other than Shield, the other option is the regular Heal skill, right? Healing one character 5 times the caster's intelligence and dispelling a debuff. And yeah, which one you choose, Shield or Heal, can kind of depend on whether you have, let's say, 2 healers in the battle, or whether you desperately need a shield effect to counter healing negation debuffs. So there we go. That is Iris's skills. So combos tend to be, let's say, Heal, Dolly, and Le Jardin Iris, or Le Jardin Iris, Heal, and Mass Heal. Okay. Alright, so moving on, let's talk about her soldiers now. And we begin by talking about the hero boosts. So the hero boost for soldiers starts off at what you see here. 10% hit points, 10% defense, and 5% magic defense. And then her third bond actually buffs up magic defense values as well as hit points. So the final soldier boost ends up being 35% hit points, 10% attack, 20% defense, and 30% magic defense increases. Not much to say about it. This is pretty standard and typical for healers in general. For example, if I bring up Tieres, right, 10, 10, 40, 40. If I bring up Liana, it's 40, 10, 10, 40. So she's very similar to Liana in this sense, except with slightly less values because she actually boosts the attack of soldiers a bit. Slightly less hit points and magic defense for more attack. So overall, I do prefer more attack over, let's say, the hit points and magic defense, so it's a nice bonus to see. From the training ground, she gets access to 2 soldiers. The first one is the Holy Knight, and the second one is both Rangers. She has 4 additional tier 3 soldiers, which are Bishop, Demon Hunter, Sorceress, and finally Wizard. In terms of best soldiers, surprisingly, they're actually all quite usable. Holy Knight and Bishop would be primarily for additional healing effect, right? At level 10, it's 15% additional healing, which is a nice effect to have. Although, in my opinion, not exactly required when she's already healing, let's say, 2.5 times or 3 times intelligence. It's kind of up to you. I personally find that you don't need 15 additional healing effect, but each to their own. In terms of maximum survivability, you would be bringing Bolt Rangers, because Bolt Rangers at level 10 have a 100% chance to decrease damage taken by 50% chance before entering battle. So, bringing Bolt Rangers would actually allow Iris to, let's say, tank a hit successfully. It can increase your strategies, your strategic options. If your healer can tank a hit and then you have someone else finish off the enemies, right? Sorceresses are a strong unit for doing damage because they get additional attack and magic defense, and it's increased by 40%. So sorceresses can be a strong soldier to bring on her as well. And they can work quite well, especially if, let's say, you use a tank that guards against physical attacks but does not guard against magic attacks, specifically Vargas, right? If your tank is Vargas, he can only protect against physical attacks, and then having sorceresses on your Iris, right, so that they have 40% magic defense, can allow her to tank magical attacks relatively successfully. And so this is all very situational. I would say Wizard is her most useless soldier overall, because anytime you have a choice between both Sorceresses and Wizards, generally Sorceress is the better unit. It's just that simple. And finally, the Demon Hunter. Well, the Demon Hunter kind of turns her into a hybrid character in truth. I'm not a fan of them. They're more meant for archers, right? Because at level 10, they have a 100% chance to reduce enemy mobility by 2 and decrease enemy defense by 20%. So you can disable, let's say, a Lancer's Guard effect, or reduce an enemy character's defense value so that other characters can follow up and do more damage. They are usable for her, for sure. It all depends. It's a very situational based soldier to use. Mainly, for example, if you want Iris to first debuff an enemy's defense so that other characters can follow up and potentially one-shot them after that. So, yeah. Very rare situation, I would say, but usable at level 10. So, there you go. Of all her soldiers, of the 6 soldiers, 5 actually have utility, right? I would say the best ones would be Sorceress, Bolt Ranger, and probably Holy Knight. I actually don't level Holy Knight, and I don't have Bishops leveled, so for me personally, it would be Bolt Rangers or Sorceresses. But nonetheless, 5 of these soldiers are usable. I would say Wizard is the most useless, given that Sorceress does the same role effect. And with her soldiers covered, we now move on to talk about her equipment. And Iris is quite simple in terms of equipment. She uses standard healer gear because you want to buff up her intelligence to max. So that usually means Liana has pretty much the ideal set. You bring a blue moon or a red moon with ideally lots of intelligence increase and some hit point increase. You bring a Tenyos robe with lots of hit point increase and ideally an intelligence increase. You bring a Yggdrasil Reef, same thing, with ideally hit point increase with intelligence increase. And you bring a Holy Ring with, once again, hit point increase and intelligence increase. That pretty much sums it up. Not much else to say there. You can swap out the Holy Ring for a Crystal Ball for the same silence effect for PvP content, right? You'd have less intelligence, but you'd get more hit points at the cost of reduced magic defense. It's a reasonable trade-off overall. I personally prefer. You can also actually bring on her. You can actually bring the Goddess tier, right? Because Goddess tier increases healing effect, and can, after taking action, you can dispel 1 debuff from 1 nearby friendly unit within 2 blocks. Or this number increases as you level up the Goddess tier, right? So the reason she can actually use Goddess tier over Holy Ring is because, generally speaking, Iris's healing effects comes from buffs, right? She applies a buff from her Lovely Heart talent, and if she uses her Dolly skill before combat begins, she has this buff that can apply healing on other characters. So you can actually choose to run Goddess tier on Iris. It can be dangerous, especially if you get silenced, right? Then you can no longer use, for example, your 1-point skill of heal or shield, and you may potentially be cut off from using her ultimate skill, right? Le Jardin d'Iris, but it is a reasonable choice, especially if, let's say, you don't have quite that many crystal balls or holy rings leveled up. Especially since, let's say, holy rings in particular are used by a lot of other characters. And finally, we talk about the best enchant for her. And in terms of enchant value, I would say just match up with Liana as well, which makes it Full Moon. Because Full Moon gives, essentially Full Moon will effectively give your healer plus 15% intelligence, right? There's the 10% offensive and defensive stats increase from the 4-piece effect, and then the additional 5% int from Full Moon's effect. You could choose to use, the standard crystal enchant, of course, but keep in mind that standard crystal enchant first increases defense and magic defense by 5%, and then healing is increased by 20%. So I guess you get an additional 5% healing effect for that. The drawback, of course, is your healer will have significantly less intelligence, meaning she won't be able to do ranged attacks on enemies, right? And as you know, for PvP, like Apex Arena, battles surprisingly frequently narrow down to healer versus tank and battles where each side has a healer and a tank, right? If your healer has high intelligence and from Full Moon enchant and faction buff, they could actually attack and do good damage to the enemy. But if you have crystal, you're missing 15% intelligence, so your stats will be much lower, and you probably won't be able to attack that way. So, I personally think Full Moon would be a better choice. You can use crystal temporarily for sure, but yeah, just keep that in mind. And with that, I think that's everything about Iris. So, to sum it up, she is a top tier healer. She is definitely usable for PvP. She's even usable for PvE with the teleportations, and she has 4 mobility herself, as well as the ability to teleport herself and others at will. So just a great healer, a great addition to the game, and in truth, it makes it pretty hard to decide which healers to bring on your Apex team at this point. Because now you have a choice between, Liana, Tieris, Chloe, Sophia, Iris, right? And then you have hybrid healers like Imelda and Rachel. So there's almost too many healers that it's become very difficult to choose which ones you bring to the fight. So I guess the final thing that it comes down to would be the the factions that you play. Because ultimately, Iris is part of Empire, Princess Alliance, and Heroes of Time. So if, for example, I don't know, if you have Origins characters, a whole bunch of them, you probably don't want to bring Iris. But if you're using, let's say, lots of Princess Alliance and Empire characters, then Iris is definitely a great healer to bring along. So, thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you found this information useful. And on that note, Nitro out.